I found out I might have a secret kid after my one-night stand recently passed away. When I was in my early 20s, I was an extremely lonely person who constantly tried to drown my feelings in casual intimacy. I was a very insecure guy, and my self-worth was measured by how many women I could sleep with in a certain amount of time. I've done a lot of growing since then, and I have been in therapy for a while now. I stopped having casual intimacy a few years ago, and those days are long behind me, or so I thought. I should have known that having such a long period of my life where I was being sexually irresponsible would eventually come back to bite me. I just never expected it to happen so tragically. Recently I found out that a woman that I had had a one-night stand with about 4 years ago passed away in a violent car accident. I only found out because a friend had sent me a Facebook post by one of her family members, since he remembered that she and I had hooked up all those years ago. As I scrolled through her Facebook, I was consumed with sadness. She was only 28, and she had her whole life ahead of her. I found out that she had been killed by a drunk driver, and it just seemed like such a senseless and tragic loss. From her Facebook, I also found out that she was a single mother to a 4-year-old. I was going through so many emotions as I scrolled through her page, but of course, I wondered if the child might be mine since the timeline matched up, and she honestly did kind of resemble me. I have a pretty distinct eye color and hair texture, and her child has the exact same similarities to me. I decided to go to her funeral and introduce myself to her parents even though I hadn't been part of her life. All I said was that I was an old friend and then I was so sorry for their loss. They were lovely people who were obviously heavily grieving, and I talked with them for a long time at the funeral, just letting them vent and talk about their daughter. Her child was also there. I honestly wanted to burst out in tears when I saw her just because my heart was breaking for this innocent little baby who just lost her mom before she even got a chance to know her. When I looked at her in the eyes I felt something heavy in my chest. Even though I had no proof, I really did feel like she might be my own kid. I ended up staying at the funeral for a long time and getting to know the family better. As I said, they were very lovely, welcoming people, and even though the circumstance that led me to the funeral was unconventional, I felt sort of at home with them. After the burial ceremony, the family was hosting their guests at their house and invited me back with them. I ended up spending even more time with them and even played with the toddler. Something about it just felt right. When I got home that night, I knew that I wanted to come clean to the family about who I was and potentially ask them for a DNA test on the child. I don't know what I'll do if the test comes back positive, but I do feel strangely attached to this family after everything that happened today. I found out I might have a secret kid after my one-night stand recently passed away. In my initial post, I explained that I had a one-night stand with a woman 4 years ago and recently found out that she had been killed in a car crash. I decided to attend her funeral and ended up getting to know her family there, as well as meeting her 4-year-old child, which I suspected might be mine. While I was at the family's house after the funeral, I spent a good amount of time playing with the toddler, and it just gave me such warm fuzzy feelings inside. It made me feel good to bring some joy into this poor child's life after she had experienced such a devastating loss that she couldn't even comprehend with her being so young. I spoke a lot in my first post about how nice and warm the grandparents of the child were to me, and even though I was a stranger to them, they treated me like family on the day of the funeral. We ended up exchanging information, and they thanked me for being so supportive on such a difficult day for them. They said that the toddler, Molly, had been struggling after her mom died, and she had been so confused and upset since the accident. Apparently, she just kept asking her grandparents when her mommy was coming home and then crying herself to sleep most nights. I can't even explain how devastating this felt for me to hear. It was just one of the saddest situations I had ever been involved in my life, and I knew I wanted to be there for this family, whether she was my child or not. I ended up getting closer and closer to the family, and after I had known them for about a month, I came clean with the truth about how I had known their daughter. Thankfully, they were very understanding and said that I was a gentleman for having the respect to come to the funeral. They were the first ones to bring up the paternity test on Molly, and we all decided together that we would go through with it. The results took a couple of days to come in, so I had time to really consider what I was feeling in regard to this family and Molly. As I waited for the results, I decided that even if she wasn't related to me by blood, I still cared about her and her kind family. When the paternity results came in, I went over to Molly's grandparents' house so we could read the results all together. I shocked myself when I absolutely broke down into a mess of tears when it turned out the paternity test was positive. Molly was indeed my daughter. I will never forget that feeling of scooping her up, knowing that she truly was my flesh and blood, and that even though she had lost her mom, her dad was here, holding her and ready to care for her for the rest of her life. I had been such a directionless young adult, but now I see that I was always destined to be Molly's father. I wish with all my heart that her mother was still with us, and I know when she's older, I will have to explain to her what happened. But for now, I decided that I want to be as present in her life as possible and that I feel blessed with the opportunity of fatherhood. My daughter's grandparents are some of the most caring and accepting people I have ever met, and they have agreed to let me be as involved in Molly's life as I want. It was such an emotional, unforgettable day when we all realized that I actually was a real part of their family and that I was here to stay. It's been about a year since then, and Molly now lives with me full time. Even though I am a single dad, the support of her grandparents has made fatherhood much smoother than I ever thought it would be. The overwhelming love that I feel for Molly is something that I could have never expected to experience in this life. I just wish her mother was here so I could thank her for the beautiful gift that she has given me.